Hello everyone, sorry for not having a review up in so long. I've been occupied with my personal life a bit, and plus, I've been posting new Let's Play videos on YouTube, and I've been busy live streaming on Twitch. I recently got the idea to make a new top 10 video, covering my favorite video game franchises. Some of them you may not recognize, but a majority of them are pretty well known, so my choices might not be much of a surprise to you. So until I get over my writer's block for review content, enjoy this video for now. Here are my top 10 favorite video game franchises. Number 10. Sonic the Hedgehog. This one is a little bit low on the list, considering that most of the games in the series are a little less than great. And plus, most of the only ones that I like are the main trilogy on the Sega Genesis, and some of the odd ones that not a lot of people will agree with me on. Like I mentioned in my Sonic Mega Collection Plus review, it is one of the top favorite franchises for any gamer out there, but for me, to be honest, it is not my top favorite, hence why this is so low on the list. I hope you can all forgive me. Number 9. Team Fortress. Like most PC gamers, this was my first game I played on Steam, which sparked my interest in PC gaming about 7 or 8 years ago. It is a great multiplayer experience for any FPS fans, and this is far better than Call of Duty, to be honest. The art style and characters are silly and cartoonish, while having a massive gunfight gameplay style to it, which I find is the perfect mixture for this type of game genre. Not much else really needs to be explained because I am sure a majority of you have played this sometime in your life. For anyone that does need an explanation, I will give you the short version. You play as different character classes, fighting for a briefcase. Number 8. Hoyo Puyo. For anyone that does not know what this game is, let me explain. Anyone that grew up in the 90s will most likely know what either Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or Kirby's Avalanche is. This here is the original Japanese version of a game that has had its skin changed for North American audiences. The gameplay is similar to that of Tetris. The main difference is the pieces do not stay together in shape, but instead, the pieces fall down in any empty spaces that are there. Another difference in gameplay is that there is no need to clear lines on the screen, but instead, you need to match up 4 of the same colors, which can make for some pretty insane chains and combos. This was one of the main games to make me addicted to puzzle games, such as Tetris, which I've already mentioned, and Candy Crush, Panel de Pon, and Bejeweled. Number 7. The Legend of Zelda. Do I even need to explain? Okay, fine. The Legend of Zelda is a massive series, like, massive! It is hard to keep track of how many Zelda games there are now. First we have the original on the NES, then we have the sequel, Adventure of Link, and then came the third one on Super Nintendo, Link to the Past. Then after that was Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64, and then I lost track after that. This is one franchise that I might have trouble keeping up with, but I will admit that the games are great. There is a ton of puzzle solving, plus lots of combat with monsters of all kinds. The story of each game can be pretty amazing. You almost feel like you are part of the experience. You feel determined to save this kingdom. You want to save the princess, and I love it when a game does that, to make the player a part of the adventure. I will admit though, the puzzle solving aspect of it, I might have had trouble in many of the games. You have to really think about the environment and the objects around you, and use whatever you have in your arsenal to get you forward in your adventure to save Hyrule. Also, how does Link carry all this stuff? Number 6. Banjo Kazooie. Imagine a time when Rare was one of the greatest third-party companies who made great games such as Perfect Dark, Donkey Kong Country, Conker's Bad Fur Day, GoldenEye 007, Battletoads, and of course, Banjo Kazooie. This was basically Super Mario 64, but with a bear and a bird, and they had to save this bear's younger sister from an evil witch. The whole premise of the game was essentially a collectathon. You had to collect musical notes, jigsaw pieces, and various other objects in order to progress through the game. Along the way, you had to learn various moves from Bottles the Mole. These moves include shooting eggs, running on bird legs, and an invincibility move. The game's sequel, Banjo Tooie, took everything that was great about the first game and then gave it a shot of steroids. New abilities in this game were introduced, such as a first-person shooter mode and the ability to separate Banjo and Kazooie, meaning you could do separate things with both of them. The third game, Nuts and Bolts, is just okay. I don't mind it. It is not bad, but that does not make it a masterpiece either. That is all I will say about it. Overall, this is a game franchise I really enjoy replaying whenever I get a free moment in my life. Number 5. Mega Man. Considering that the Mega Man X Legacy Collection is out now and Mega Man 11 is coming soon, this seems to be the perfect time to talk about the Mega Man franchise. Every game in the series is basically the same. You are a robot who has to fight 8 different robot masters with his Mega Buster in hand. But not every game is exactly the same. Later in the series, you start getting cool additional upgrades, weapons, and equipment. The first 6 games were on the NES, while 7 was one of the only ones that got a Super Nintendo upgrade. Then 8 came out on both the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. 9 and 10 were eventually released a few years later through digital stores, such as the Wii Shop Channel, Xbox Live Arcade, and the PlayStation Store. These ones were trying to mimic the old school look of 1 to 6, but unfortunately got rid of the charge shot and slide. Then, there is the X series in the franchise, which is considered by most to be the hardest in the series. I, on the other hand, did not have a lot of trouble with the first game in the X series. There were 8 games in the X series, from 1 to 8. The first 3 were released on the Super Nintendo, though the third game was also released on the PlayStation, Saturn, and PC in both Japan and Europe only. 4 to 6 were released on the PlayStation, though the fourth game was also released on the Sega Saturn and PC. The 7th game was on the PlayStation 2, but was unfortunately met with negative response, and I can definitely see why. 8 was released right after 7, and the game was met with positive reviews after fixing the problems that were present in 7. But my favorite out of the Mega Man series has got to be Legends. I want to talk about more about this one, but I spent a bit more time talking about Mega Man that I still need to continue the countdown. Number 4. Super Smash Bros. If anyone were to offer me a battle in any fighting game, I would choose this over Street Fighter any day. This fighting game franchise is one of the biggest Nintendo crossovers anyone will ever play. Imagine Mario beating up Link, or Kirby beating up Ganondorf. The possible combinations are endless. There are currently 4 games in the franchise, with a 5th one coming out on Nintendo Switch soon. The first one was released on the Nintendo 64, which had a small and basic roster of fighters, with 4 unlockable characters: Ness, Luigi, Captain Falcon, and Jigglypuff. The second one, Melee, was released on the Nintendo GameCube, and is still considered by some to be the most definitive version for competitive tournaments. The roster got bigger, the graphics had a massive upgrade, and the gameplay was so much smoother, it's like cutting butter with a knife. The third game, Brawl, released on the Nintendo Wii, had the first ever appearance of Solid Snake and Sonic the Hedgehog, which drove so many people insane when it was announced. The selling point of Brawl was the story mode, Subspace Emissary. Despite not a lot of talking going on, it was able to tell an engaging story with some epic and funny moments here and there. The gameplay was almost the same as Melee, though the tripping was not necessary and just made fighting a bit weird. The newest one on the market was released for the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS. Both versions had some differences between them. For instance, the 3DS version had a mode called Smash Run, which you had to gain stat upgrades while fighting enemies in a specific amount of time, before going to a random event or match. The Wii U, however, had the ability to fight against 7 other players in the same match, but this was only limited to local play and not online. All the Smash Bros. Games are great, and I am hoping they can deliver with the new Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on Nintendo Switch. Number 3. Metal Gear Solid. If you like video games where you have to sneak around enemies without getting caught, this is probably for you then. The Metal Gear franchise has always amazed me in more ways than one, so this is going to be a bit hard to explain, even in my own words. So imagine a sneaking game, but it is also story-driven. You are a guy who has to sneak into an enemy base, and he has to stop some terrorists from launching a nuclear weapon. That is pretty much the story, though it gets a bit more complicated when you get to the middle. I do not want to spoil too much for you, so go play it if you are curious. Throughout the game, you get an arsenal of items and weapons to help you through your mission, though the game encourages you to sneak and not engage combat. The origin of this series actually goes back to the MSX home computer from Japan, though we did not get the series until Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation. The first Metal Gear on NES is a butchered port of the original MSX game, and Snake's Revenge was a completely different game and not part of the canon. A few more games after Solid was made, which include Sons of Liberty, Snake Eater, Guns of the Patriots, Ground Zeroes, and The Phantom Pain. My favorite in the series has to be the second game. The fact that you were tricked into thinking you were going to play as Snake the whole game was part of the experience. It was a marketing plan by Hideo Kojima. He never revealed on any piece of advertising that Raiden was going to be in the game. I won't spoil too much, but the reason for this is because the overall theme of the game is deception and manipulation. The plot involves a lot of it. This is a game franchise that I love to death, that it is even part of my logo. Number 2. Kingdom Hearts. It is Disney and Final Fantasy together in one game series. What else to say, really? As a fan of Disney, I absolutely love this game franchise to its fullest. The story of this game may be a bit confusing to most of you out there, but if you really take the time to pay attention, it is another great engaging story. You are a kid named Sora, along with his two other friends, Kairi and Riku, are on this island and they have a passion to visit other worlds. Until one night, a dark bubble in the sky sucks up the island and everyone gets separated from each other, but not until Sora gets this special sword called the Keyblade, which can open and close keyholes of any world they connect to one another, and Sora must seal all the keyholes in order to keep the darkness at bay. During the start of his adventure, he joins up with Disney stars Donald Duck and Goofy, who have magic powers and a very defensive shield, respectively. The gameplay is a pretty basic action RPG game, with different techniques and magic spells you can use to change up your style of combat, making this game a worthwhile playthrough. There were many different spin-offs to this game, and an upcoming third game, which has been delayed and put off numerous times, but hopefully it will be released soon. I am not going to say too much about this game, because I do not know what else to say, other than Disney and Final Fantasy. And my number 1 favorite game franchise is Kirby. If you guys have subscribed and followed me for a long while, this is probably not a surprise for any of you. I love this game series so much that I collect the merchandise and plushies. Yes, plushies. At its core, it seems like a harmless, cute, and very easy game series, but once you start getting serious with completing 100%, then the real fun begins. I will not spoil it, so you can find out yourselves what happens when you become a completionist of any of the Kirby games. The first game on the original Game Boy was the first one I ever played, so I am one of the original players from the mid-90s, and I still love every new entry that comes out to this day. It was also the game that came with my brother's Game Boy on that fateful Christmas day, and I still have the picture of it. No joke. A good majority of the games have colorful characters, environments, backgrounds, and even the enemies are cute. The stories they tell can be pretty good too, despite being so basic that even a 5-year-old could figure it out. Each new entry in the series tries to introduce a new character to the mix, like Dreamland 2 has the Animal Companions, 64 has Ribbon, and Return to Dreamland has Magalar. If I were to pick a favorite Kirby game out of all of them, it would have to be Kirby Superstar Ultra. If the original Superstar didn't exist, we would not have this totally needed upgrade on the Nintendo DS. It takes everything that was great about Superstar and added new games, updated the graphics, and even brought in some FMV cutscenes. I also, almost always, watch the Japanese anime on a bit of a basis on some days. It lasted for 100 episodes, and even got an extra episode years later on the Nintendo Video app on the Nintendo 3DS. I could talk more about the show, but that is for a totally separate video coming in the later future. Well, I hope you enjoyed knowing what my top 10 favorite video game franchises were. I don't know when my next review will be out, but I will try to fill in your requests if you have any. You can go ahead and leave a comment asking me what game or game series to review next, or you can also type in a hateful comment, which is also appreciated. As always, thanks for subscribing.